The Kravathi didn't understand mercy. They understood hierarchy, combat efficiency, and the cold mathematics of survival. Commander Sen watched from the observation deck as the human trainer moved among his warriors in training, her small frame dwarfed by the juvenile Kravathi who towered over her even at their young age. "This is foolishness," Sen growled, his mandibles clicking in disapproval. "She has no claws, no armor plating, no venom sacs. What can she possibly teach our cubs?" His second-in-command said nothing. They had been through this argument before. Below, Dr. Sarah Chen demonstrated a close-quarters combat technique, her movements fluid and precise. The cubs, each standing 7 feet tall with razor-sharp claws and crystalline scales, watched with the intense focus that only the young possessed. Their species had evolved on a death world where hesitation meant extinction, where showing weakness invited challenge. Little Rilo stepped forward when the human called for a volunteer. At only 3 cycles old, he was the smallest of the cohort, constantly struggling to keep pace with his larger clutchmates. His scales hadn't fully hardened yet, still showing traces of the soft blue of infancy rather than the battle-scarred gray of warriors. The training began. Rilo moved through the forms, his body remembering what his conscious mind had yet to fully grasp. Then came the live weapons drill, plasma blades set to training intensity, hot enough to teach respect but not to kill. Usually, it happened in an instant. Rilo's footing slipped on the training mat. His plasma blade arced wild, and his left foreclaw pressed directly against the superheated edge. The smell of burning chitin filled the air. Rilo's screech of pain silenced the entire training hall. Every cub froze. This was the moment where weakness revealed itself, where the unfit were identified. Kravathi cubs who couldn't handle pain were reassigned to lesser duties if they survived the shame. Sen leaned forward, waiting to see which cub would strike first. This was natural selection in action, but the human moved faster than any of them. Sarah Chen was at Rilo's side before the young Kravathi could even collapse. She caught him, supporting his weight, despite being a fraction of his size. Her face showed something the Kravathi had no word for: concern. Yes, but deeper, softer. "It's okay. It's okay," she murmured, her voice carrying across the silent hall. "Let me see it. Rilo. Let me help." Rilo's eyes, black as void and wide with shock, fixed on her. In Kravathi culture, he should have pulled away, should have snarled, and defended himself from this moment of vulnerability. But something in the human's voice, in her strange mammalian warmth, made him go still. Sarah pulled out her medical kit, something Sen had questioned her carrying. "Soft species need soft tools," he had scoffed. Now he watched as she cleaned the burn with practiced efficiency, applied a cooling gel that made Rilo's breathing slow from panicked to merely pained, and wrapped the damaged claw in sterile bandaging. "You're going to be fine," she told him, her hands gentle but sure. "This will heal. You'll be back to training in no time. You're brave, Rilo. So brave. Brave." She called him brave for being injured, for accepting help. The contradiction made Sen's head ache. When she finished, Sarah helped Rilo to his feet and guided him to the recovery area. The other cubs parted for them, watching with those inscrutable black eyes. Then she returned to the training floor. "All right," she announced, clapping her hands together. "Who wants to learn why proper footwork matters?" The session continued. But something had shifted in the air, something Sen couldn't quite identify. Night fell on the training compound. The cubs were housed in a communal den, standard practice to encourage pack bonding and weed out the incompatible. Sarah Chen had her own quarters nearby, a small prefab unit that the Kravathi military considered adequate for alien liaisons. Sen reviewed the day's training footage in his office, trying to pinpoint what disturbed him about the human's methods. She was effective. The cubs' performance metrics had improved 17% since her arrival. But her approach violated every principle of Kravathi martial education. An alert chimed. Motion sensors in the human's quarters. Frowning, Sen pulled up the external cameras. What he saw made his combat-honed instincts surge with alarm. The cubs had left their den. All 10 of them, including bandaged little Rilo. They moved with the predatory silence that even juvenile Kravathi possessed, converging on the human's habitat. Sen's hand moved to the emergency response trigger. Had Sarah's softness triggered their hunting instincts? Had her display of weakness marked her as prey? But the cubs didn't breach the entrance. Instead, they arranged themselves in a defensive perimeter around her habitat. Rilo took position directly in front of her door, his injured paw held carefully but his posture alert. The others spaced themselves at strategic intervals, their young eyes scanning the darkness for threats. They were guarding her. Sen stood frozen, unable to process what he was witnessing. Kravathi cubs didn't guard. They competed. They challenged. They established dominance. They certainly didn't protect members of another species, especially weak ones who couldn't survive a single blow from a Kravathi adult. Hours passed. Sen watched, transfixed. The cubs maintained their vigil with the discipline of trained soldiers, shifting positions occasionally, but never abandoning their posts. When the twin moons reached their apex, little Rilo's head began to droop. Exhaustion and pain medication taking their toll. Immediately, the cub beside him, Tresh, the largest and most aggressive of the cohort, adjusted his position to cover Rilo's sector. No words were exchanged. No challenge issued. Just quiet cooperation. Dawn came. Sarah Chen emerged from her habitat, coffee in hand, and stopped dead at the sight of 10 juvenile Kravathi arrayed around her home. For a moment, she just stared. Then, her eyes grew bright with moisture, another confusing mammalian response. Sen had learned to recognize but not understand. "Oh, you guys," she whispered. "You didn't have to." Rilo chirped softly, the sound young Kravathi made when seeking approval from pack leaders. Sarah knelt down, making herself smaller, more vulnerable, and gently touched his bandaged paw. "How does it feel this morning?" Rilo flexed his claws experimentally, then chirped again, stronger. Sarah smiled. "Good, that's good. Now, all of you." She swept her gaze across the assembled cubs. "Thank you. But you need rest. Back to the den." And that's an order. They went. Without argument, without challenge, they simply obeyed. Sen found himself walking to the training facility, drawn by questions he couldn't articulate. He found Sarah in her office, reviewing footage of the previous day's session, making notes on each cub's progress. "Commander," she acknowledged, not looking up. "Something I can help you with? What did you do to them?" The words came out harsher than he intended. Now she looked up, one eyebrow raised. "Sir, the cubs. They guarded you. All night. Kravathi young don't. He struggled for words. "They should have seen your kindness as weakness. They should have challenged you." Sarah leaned back in her chair, her expression thoughtful. "Maybe," she said quietly. "Or maybe they're learning that strength doesn't always look like what you expect." "You coddled Rilo. Made him soft. I helped him when he was hurt. There's a difference." She gestured to her screen, where Rilo's training metrics glowed. "Look at his scores from this morning. He's already back on the mat, practicing with twice his usual intensity. That burn could have made him afraid of plasma blades. Instead, he knows he can get hurt and recover. He knows someone will have his back. That's not weakness, Commander. That's resilience." Sen stared at the data. She was right. Rilo's performance had spiked. "Among my people," Sarah continued, "we have a saying, courage is not the absence of fear, but action in the face of it. Those cubs weren't guarding me because they think I'm strong. They were guarding me because they learned that protecting the vulnerable is what the strong do. And now," she smiled, "they're going to be the most formidable warriors your species has ever produced, because they'll fight not just for dominance, but for each other." Sen's mandibles clicked slowly as he processed this. It violated everything he knew about Kravathi nature. Yet, the evidence stood before him, undeniable. You're changing them, he said finally. No, Commander. Sarah turned back to her screens. I'm just showing them that evolution isn't finished with your species yet. Empathy isn't weakness. It's the next stage. Outside, in the training yard, 10 cubs ran their morning drills. Little Relo kept pace with the others now, his bandaged paw moving with careful determination, and when he stumbled, Tresh was there to steady him without breaking stride. The mathematics of survival, Sen realized, were more complex than he'd ever imagined. And perhaps, just perhaps, the soft little human